This is the U.S. Coast Guard Petty Officer Riley speaking. Yes, I'd like to report a boat dumping sewage in the water. What's the name of the vessel? It's called the Coral Queen. The gambling boat? At the Muleman Marina? That's right. Did you witness this violation personally? Petty Officer Riley asked. Look for a bright purple trail leading to Thunder Beach, but you'd better hurry. Who am I speaking with? Underwood. Payne Underwood. My second phone call was to the Island Examiner newspaper. This time I used my own name, not Dad's. Miles Umlaut remembered me, of course. Yes, it's good to hear from you, Noah. But I'm sort of busy right now. A bait truck just flipped over in Key Largo, and there's live shrimp all over the highway. Want a real story? A front page story? Miles Umlaut said. Sure, you bet. He was humoring me, playing along. I could picture the bored look on his pale, splotchy face. All that stuff my dad said about Dusty Muleman? Well, it's true. Every word. Miles Umlaut said, I know how you must feel, Noah. If it were my father, I'd stick up for him too. You want proof? Get over to Dusty's Marina right now. Why? What's going on? Suddenly he was interested. Ask the Coast Guard, I said, and hung up. Dad, Mom, and Abby were in the living room, gathered around Grandpa Bobby. When I came out of the kitchen, he motioned for me to sit down beside him. For the first time, I noticed his resemblance to my father. Dad was taller and heavier, but he had the same square chin and light green eyes. Grandpa Bobby took out a small photograph, worn and creased from being folded and unfolded. In the picture, his curly hair was blonde, not silvery, and there was no scar on his cheek. He was lifting some half-naked little kid high over his head. The kid was laughing and kicking his chubby white legs. The kid was me. You were only 2 years old, my grandfather said. It was the first photograph of him that I'd ever seen. My parents had lost all their family albums when a tropical storm flooded our house on the night before my 3rd birthday. Grandpa Bobby passed the snapshot around. Then he carefully refolded it into a square and slipped it in his pocket. Turning back to me, he said, You want to go first, champ? No thanks, you go. He took a slow sip from a coffee mug. Lord, where do I start? Well, I guess by saying how bad I feel for keeping out of touch the last 10 years or so. Out of touch? Everybody thought you were dead, Abby exclaimed. I'm sorry. I truly am, Grandpa Bobby said. Payne, Donna, believe me when I say I had good reasons for staying out of your life. I could tell that Mom and Dad were glad to have Grandpa Bobby back, but they were also kind of dazed and quiet. My sister wasn't dazed at all, since she'd never met him. He had disappeared before she was born. It's not a happy story. One day a man came along, said he needed a captain to make a couple of trips down to South America. The money was right, and I didn't ask many questions. Wasn't like I didn't know what to ask. I just chose not to. Anyways, the first run went fine. No problems with the second run either, but the third time, oh man. Were you smuggling drugs? I asked. Even Abby seemed shocked to hear me say it. No, champ, I've got no fondness for dopers. It was stones. Little green stones called emeralds. But smuggling is smuggling and stupid is stupid, and that's what I was. World-class stupid, because the guys I trusted turned out to be greedy, backstabbing liars. Actually, face-stabbing liars. He pointed ruefully at the M-shaped scar. Anyways, the details don't hardly matter. There was some serious ugliness, and yours truly had to go underground. Up close, he didn't look so much like a pirate, at least not the kind of pirate you see in the movies. His teeth were too straight and his manners were too good. But he also didn't look like the kind of grandpa you usually see in the movies. His belly was still flat and his muscles were hard, and he was brimming with some strange, wild energy. You could tell he'd never spent a minute of his life dozing in a rocking chair. Dad asked, What happened to the Amanda Rose? That was Grandpa Bobby's fishing boat, which he'd named after his wife, my grandmother. I never got to meet her because she passed away when my father was just a kid, about Abby's age. Some sort of rare cancer. Mom told us. It was only one of the only things my dad wouldn't talk about. Not ever. Pain, they stole the Amanda Rose, my grandfather said to Sally, the same night they tried to kill me. Ever since then, I've spent every bleeping minute trying to track down those rats, pardon the language, and get back my boat. Mom spoke up. We keep getting different stories from the State Department. Somebody said your appendix ruptured. Somebody else said it was a bar fight. Grandpa Bobby slapped his gut. Far as I know, my appendix is fine and dandy. As for bar fights, well, who's counting? Then why'd they tell us you were dead when you weren't? I asked. Because there was a dead American, Noah. They found him near a little village outside Barranquilla. My wallet happened to be in the man's pocket. So the Colombian cops figured that he was me, Grandpa Bobby explained. That's the body your daddy's been writing letters to Washington about. The coffin never got dug up and shipped back to the States because I paid off a police captain to make sure it wouldn't. He grinned slightly. See, I didn't want to miss my own funeral. Abby folded her arms. Hold on. How did some dead guy end up with your wallet? He stole it from me, which was a large mistake. Grandpa Bobby took another sip of coffee. It tore me up on the inside, knowing y'all thought I was planted in some pauper's grave in the middle of nowhere. But I couldn't come back to Florida and bring the kind of trouble that was attached to me. You folks had a solid, decent life going here. Young Noah getting started. Abby on the way. You could have called, my sister said sharply. They've got telephones in South America, don't they? Or send a letter at least, I cut in, just to let Dad know you were okay. Grandpa Bobby sat back and smiled. Kids, let me tell you something about your daddy. He's a good man, but sometimes his brain takes a nap and lets his heart take the tiller. My father shifted uncomfortably. Oh, come on, Pop. But Grandpa Bobby was on a roll. He addressed Abby and me directly. When your father was a boy, you know what his nickname was at school? Pain in the butt. Underwood. Abby and I busted out laughing. See, he had a bad habit of doing the very first thing that popped into his mind, no matter how foolish. My grandfather said, now what do you think he would have done if he'd found out I was still alive and scrambling to stay that way? Down in the jungles of Colombia. He would have hopped on a plane or boat or donkey, whatever, and gone looking for me. Am I right, son? And likely gotten himself killed in the bargain. Dad stared down at his shoes. My mother asked, so what made you come back, Pop? This is first-rate coffee. Can I pour myself another cup? While Grandpa Bobby was in the kitchen, Abby nudged my father and whispered, they really called you Pain in the Butt?